The way we made the movie was in 3 parts. The first thing we did was the ground story, which we had all the dramatic scenes with all our actors.
So for like 7 weeks, they were shooting everything that didn't have anything to do with flying. And
we called it The Story.
yeah.
That's all it was, really.
I remember going to Tony and saying, "What's it about?" He said, "Script's only that thick." He says, "We're shooting rock and roll, mate. Relationships are just the quiet spots in between the flying sequences."
We stayed at a place called the Bahia, which was kind of, it was kind of like Disneyland in a way. A lot of cottages and it was nonstop party.
It was just nuts. I mean, riding motorcycles through hallways, chasing the girls there on Mission Beach, having parties, all those things that you could imagine went on.
Val wanted to kind of establish himself as kind of being, you know, this cool character, Iceman, who just kind of did his own thing. And so, as I recall, he stayed in La Jolla. He took a hotel over in La Jolla, which was across the bay. And then he pretty quickly realized that the fun was kind of, you know, where it was with the group.
It was a wild time around town, though. They were all wild Indians and then hanging out with the fighter pilots, and they were all crazy, and it's a college town. Everyone in town's crazy. So I remember it being kind of one giant weekend as far as making the thing.
We were kind of given that carte blanche to go ahead and, you know, be as freewheeling as possible to kind of get into character and emulate some of the stories we'd heard and to kind of have that run of the nightlife.
Bruckheimer and Simpson were promoting us to have fun, you know. They would arrange and have a party for us 3 times a week.
There was a lot of carousing. There was a lot of, you know, party, a lot of flirtation, a lot of this, a lot of that. I was married at the time, so I was just like banging the drum for everyone else, let's say. And
Actually, the hotel room I was in was kind of the headquarters because I had the best stereo, and you never knew who was going to wake up and who would be on the roll-away, or, you know, it was just a bunch of guys goofing around and getting paid to do it, you know. Val actually had this van that he'd lost his virginity in, and that was kind of our, you know, our club car. You know, we would all pile into that thing and just wreak havoc across the Mexican border and hopefully make it back before, you know, the call time.
it was terrific. It was like a rolling party.
That van was kind of our limo, you know, and it was pretty funny, the whole thing.
And I remember we were outside the Bahia, actually, and they'd had I guess a couple cases of beer in the back of the van, and I don't think even had seats in the back. We were just laying back there, and for some reason Val just hits the gas and just burns rubber all through the intersection, right out, you know, right in the middle of San Diego.
I can't remember what happened. My foot slipped, and I think that's what happened, and I accidentally ran a red light. We were sliding, and somehow sliding was involved, I recall.
And there's a cop sitting right there. And I go, okay, that's it, you know, we're busted. It's because the lights came on, the siren pulled us over, and so we have to tell them we have beer right after that. There's no reason to hide it. I mean, what are we gonna do, look like idiots?
And I was like, I'll take care of it. No one say a word. But then, you know, they were all laughing like idiots.
So the cop came up and I just said, yeah, we have beer. And everyone looked at me like, what? And Val got the ticket. It was good. It kind of like gave everyone a little like reality check in a way, kind of, you know. And he paid the fine. But I mean, it was an open container, big deal.
Well, you know, they all hung out together other than Tom and Val. Tom and Val, Tom would hang with the guys, or Val would hang with the guys, but the 2 guys never spent time together. I can't remember them ever talking together other than when they're in character. And so they're always like...
That little bit of frosting that happens in the air when those 2 characters are around each other was happening on set.
Val wanted to kind of create, like, you know, something, a subtext that really kind of, and it worked, it really did. I mean, he would do things to kind of set himself apart. I remember we had one rehearsal, and he brought a case of wine to the rehearsal, and he carried it to the far, we were out in some field somewhere, and he carried it all the way out and he stashed it, and he gave it to Tom at the end of the rehearsal. So he made Tom actually carry this case of wine away.
It was so awful, because I did things like the character, because it was fun. Yeah, I gave it to him, and he was like, gee, thanks. He was the nicest guy in the world, you know. But then what did I do? It was awful. I left it like in the middle of a football field where we rehearsed. So I just thought it was funny that I made, you know, I got all the guys to look, you know. I made him to go out there and carry it. Maybe that's why he never called back.
He'd do like little things, like little numbers like that, just to kind of like, you know, put the stick in and kind of get a feeling going within the group. We were doing a scene in the hangar, and Tom's talking about he's had this maneuver, and then all of a sudden Val says bullshit, right? Well, that wasn't in the script, and nobody knew that was coming. Val just did that, and it was brilliant. And it was brilliant for him. It was brilliant for Tom. It was brilliant for all of us, because it gave the scene, you know, a whole nother level. And that's what's great about Val. You know, I don't know when he came up with that. It might have happened, you know, seconds before, or the night before, or a month before. Who knows? But he's an actor's actor, and if he created any kind of tension, he did it for the good of the picture.
Who was covering Cougar while you were showboating with this MiG? Cougar was doing just fine.
Cruz sort of, you know, kept to himself like his character would have. He stayed over in La Jolla, and we stayed in San Diego, and, you know, he stayed just pretty separate from everybody else.
Tom was as nervous as I was, and as he was out of his depth as I was in terms of making this movie. But that's what made him give something, I think, unique to the character, because that was part of Maverick's character.
I remember at one point having a conversation with Tom where I was aware of him being stressed. There was a sense that he wanted this to work. A lot of money was riding on this. Paramount had a lot riding on it, and he was under a lot of pressure. And he never brought it to set. That was the only time I was ever aware, and he went, I remember that attitude is, I need this to work.
I think he had a lot more pressure on him, you know, the day-to-day stuff. You know, we had scenes here and there, and then we got to go out and play. Barry, me, maybe Val, not to such an extent, but we got to have fun and then have fun acting and not have the pressure of carrying the film and having to have it on our shoulders. So I think Tom's, you know, position was a little bit, you know, he had more to lose or to gain, frankly, and he did a good job. On set, it would be interesting because a lot of times you'd find, you know, the other actors would be gathered around watching while you were doing your stuff, and that kind of, it made it kind of special in that way, you know. You felt like there was a camaraderie, there was like, it was a group effort, even though everyone wasn't on camera at the same time. And, you know, we all cared about the craft of acting, and even though this was really a high concept, you know, it went deeper than that for most of us.
It was fun, interesting, and just crazy going from being kind of a hooligan actor all of a sudden to being an officer, you know, in this movie. So we tried to bring as much reality as we could to it.
I didn't feel comfortable. I felt a bit of a phony. I felt like the actor, you know. And I remember I thought, this ain't gonna work. I gotta tell Tony this ain't gonna work. And I was like locked into this, and I could hear this sound coming, and it was the battleship Linoleum Floors. And this young shaved-tail lieutenant came flying around a corner at a full run in his Browns and in his khakis, and I was sitting there thinking, I was totally self-obsessed, thinking, how am I going to tell Tony? I don't think I can do this. And I look, and this lieutenant's standing at full attention in front of me, and I'm in full lieutenant commanders. And I looked at him and I went, slow down. And he went, yes, sir. And I went, he went, yes, sir. And he went around the corner and went, and I heard him take off again, and I went, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm over exaggerating how I need. And that really helped. He didn't know that I was an actor. He took me for exactly what I was.
When we first met with the Secretary of the Navy and the head of public affairs for the Navy, we asked them to help us out. We would like somebody who's been a Top Gun pilot, was in combat, somebody that we could really rely on, A, to review our script and make sure it was authentic, and then to be with us during the filming of the movie. And they said they just had a pilot who just recently retired, was a Top Gun pilot, was what they call a MiG killer because he shot down planes in Vietnam, and that was Pete Pettigrew.
My role was to, I guess, tell them what reality was, and then they would do what they wanted to do. Bruckheimer and Tony Scott, they know what it is they want, and I know what reality is, and the two don't match at all. So there are a few things I learned through the process. You hate the word sublimation because they use that all the time. No, we're going to sublimate the people in the audience. Another one you learn to hate is mom and pop in Oklahoma. Mom and pop in Oklahoma are the generic people that are going to go see the movie. And so you'll say, we can't do that, that's not real. And Jerry will look at you and go, yeah, but mom and pop in Oklahoma want to see that. As an example, the biggest conflict was the day that we shot what I call a classroom scene. We had a beautiful lecture room at Top Gun. It was paneled, it had plaques, it had real nice green boards and everything. Well, the day before we're going to shoot that scene, I'm looking at the one-liners. And it was supposed to be shot in the Top Gun classroom, and I'm going through the day's shoot, and it says Top Gun hangar. And I said, Jerry, this is a mistake. The classroom scene is supposed to be done in the classroom. And he said, no. He said, you don't understand. He said, it's a classroom scene, but we're going to show them a big American flag. We're going to show them an F-14 behind, 2 A4s. And even though it's a classroom scene, mom and pop in Oklahoma are going to be seeing airplanes, so it's going to be okay. So I said, oh no. So the next morning, I come in and all the Top Gun instructors are around, and there's this little crummy blackboard and some chairs sitting there in the middle of the hangar, big American flag, F-14, A4s, and I'm going, oh, this is awful, this is terrible. And the Top Gun instructors come running over and they said, Pete, what are you doing? What are you doing? And of course, I'd had all these problems before, and I didn't know what to say, so I finally said, look, guys, I said, right now, I'm just trying to stop them from turning into a musical.
I actually got away with something that would never happen in the Navy. Is I snuck my cowboy hat in, and Tony Scott loved it because we all looked the same. I mean, we're all these white boys with short haircuts. We looked like the same, kind of the same cookie cutter mold that we fell out of, and so I kept it under my chair, and right before they would roll, I'd put it on. And once we were rolling, they wouldn't stop the shot, but and also once we'd established it in the master, they had to keep it on. So, but I think I think you can take a little bit of liberties here and there on that.
May I insert, though, before we go any further, that they were right and I was wrong. Like the classroom scene came out fine, the locker room scene came out fine, and all the sequences came out fine. And if we'd done it the way I wanted to do it, it would have turned out to be a documentary, and it would have, probably never been put out. I mean, it would have never made it to the movie theaters.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1% of all naval aviators. The elite, best of the best. We'll make it better.
The real guys, the ace pilots they were pretty special breed. They were pretty cocky, and they come up to you and say, I'm a concert pianist on the side, and or I have a PhD in this, or they were like superhuman. They were just, being a pilot was kind of like their cherry on top in a way, and they were all really just super people.
This is a true story. It sounds like made up, but we went to a party with these pilots, and the only egos bigger than actors are rock stars, and the only men beyond that are fighter pilots. They have the biggest egos on the planet. And I woke up from this party, and I go in the mirror, I'm shaving, and I look, and I have a perfectly round bruise, like a 50-cent piece on my chest. And I didn't drink. I didn't fall. In the night, when I'm looking around, what could stab me? And I realize that I've got this bruise from being stabbed in the chest by fighter pilots, in the same spot, right in my chest, right in my heart. Because I'd been to a party with them, and all night long they were like, "You're the pilot that we're most like. You got good hair." I swear to God.
Let's go! Okay,
The volleyball scene is like, I knew that was kind of like a place to score. and just because it was going to be music, it was going to be a montage, and it goes back to the Bruce Weber book, you know, into this, you know, how handsome, you know, young virile bodies in the military and guys in the sand and the sweat.
It actually got voted the favorite scene in any movie for 3 years in a row by Suck magazine. And because all those guys had their gear off, and I didn't quite know what to do with the scene. I knew why the scene was in the movie, it was there to show off all the guys, but I didn't have a point of view behind the scene, so I shot the shit out of it and got the guys to take all the gear off of them, their pants, and sprayed them in baby oil and sweat. And but I didn't have a vision about what I was doing other than just doing soft porn.
We shot that in half a day. They brought in a dump truck of sand, they dumped it, they put up a net. Tony got the sun just right where he wanted it, and it was just diving into the dirt and, you know, into the sand and having a ball and digging it out. And I tried to bring some stuff to it with, you know, a closeness with Val. If you think back, you know, I'm grabbing him, I have my arm around him, have him in a headlock, and I'm doing these muscle poses and that kind of stuff. I tell you, that shot has been with me forever, and I don't really take care of myself the way I used to, but I always have that.
I always suspected Tom Cruise might have cooked my volleyball close-ups. If you notice, I don't have any. Tony came up, he was very apologetic, and they got cooked. That means they were over or underdeveloped, and there weren't any, and they couldn't go back. I think Tom went in there a little payola, because I looked good.
That's game.
Tony had this real sexy version of this consultant for the Navy, and Tony spent an enormous amount of time on her look. He hired some of the best fashion stylists to work on her, and makeup artists and hair people, and really put an enormous amount of energy into how good she looked in the movie and how good he wanted her to look in the movie. And the studio felt it wasn't quite real and tried to rein him in a little bit.
They kept saying to me, stop making Kelly look so good or so glamorous, yeah? And they thought I had a Madonna whore complex, because they kept putting Kelly in seam stockings, and she's really nasty in these 9-inch pumps, and did all this makeup on her.
I remember one comment I'd heard secondhand, that they thought Kelly looked a bit like a streetwalker, and less like you know, a very highly regarded technician from Washington.
I mean, there was a compromise, Matt, and it turned out fine, but I think it still aired on the sexy side, which is, I think, what the audience wanted, too. The Navy will tell you that the closest thing to a heart attack is a night landing on a carrier in the open seas.
All the pilots in the interviews would talk about that. What are you most scared of? And they'd all go, night carrier landing, man. It's a nightmare. You just can't believe it. It's the scariest thing in the world. And because there you are in the pitch dark night, you're up there, you know, Indian Ocean, it's black sky, there's no stars above, and all you got is a little postage stamp just bobbing on the ocean, and these guys have to basically put it down. That's scary. So we thought that was going to be something that was going to happen in the middle of the movie, and as we was trying to find it and get that thing that jump-started the picture, Jim called up one day and said, hey, you know, we should really start the movie of the night carrier landing. Let's just start it there.
Well, that was a real adventure shooting aboard the aircraft carrier. It was an awesome experience. It's an interesting place to be, and a noisy place to be up on that flight deck. And it's hard making a movie, you know, when you're wearing all the ear protection and whatever, but yet you've got to talk to people, you know, and to communicate with people, so it's kind of hard on your hearing.
Well, I remember being on the Enterprise, and we were out, I guess we were due to be out for 4 or 5 days, and you know, there's like 6,000 guys on this ship, and they've been out to sea like 180 days, and they were all I think they were a little tired, but they really wanted access to Tom, and he just I guess he, you know, what can you do? You can't really let everyone just like get in your face.
Can't get out of here without signing your name. How about a kiss? Yeah. You've been on cruise too long. I got it. It's gonna be worth some money someday. It's gonna be worth some money someday.
They were actually in operations, and they couldn't tell us where we were. We knew we were like, you know, hour and a half by helicopter out. We didn't know which direction or where, and it was all secret. So they were under, you know, operations. They never did shut down for us to do anything. They would, you know, accommodate us a little bit by doing a flyby or doing something like that, but it was never any real, you know, they just kind of captured what they do.
I remember Tony had shot some shots, and the carrier was on an exercise because they're not going to give us a carrier to film on unless it's their business, and we just happened to be along. So the carrier's steaming to whatever its destination is, and Tony decides that the sun's in the wrong place.
He wanted to backlight everything, which is really important because what it does is it gives you you shoot everything just prior to sunset, just off the sun, and it gives you a tremendous depth of field, which makes all the airplanes look real large and beautiful, and takes a lot of the flatness out of them, gives a lot of depth to them. Well, we were shooting on the Enterprise, and the captain of the Enterprise is driving. He's got the right direction. He's got the sun right where he wants, and Tony's looking and making sure the sun's exactly where he wants. He's just about ready to shoot, and just as he's about ready to shoot, the captain, who doesn't realize what's going on, kind of runs out of his area, and so all of a sudden, you know, boop, boop, you know, ship starts to turn, and Tony's going, "What's going on? My light, what's happening, what's happening?"
And I said, can we not continue on the same course? And the guy said, nope. And he's the captain's up on the bridge, and I'm on this crane down the deck. So I'm talking to with like a CB unit, so all these 1,000 guys have been woken up on a Sunday morning having to stand there and be extras for this fucking movie. Stand there watching me, and I'm up on the crane. And the captain said, nope, it cost whatever it cost. We calculated it's going to cost 25 grand to turn the ship around for the time I needed it and to run in a particular direction. So I had to get somebody to go down to my cabin, get my checkbook, pulled it up on the crane, signed a check for 25 grand, take it up to the captain, they turned the ship around.
So basically what Tony Scott did was, out of his own pocket, rented an aircraft carrier for 5 minutes so he could get his shot.
That was my Top Gun story, being a smart ass, but it was true. I remember Val was standing on the aircraft carrier with 1,000 guys around us, and Val wouldn't say that loud. He wouldn't say that last time. He said, "I can't say this line. You gotta be joking."
He didn't really want to put his arms around, you know, you can be my wingman any day. I mean, that whole part of, you know, the scene, I think he really felt was hokey, to tell you the truth. And I don't think Val really wanted to say those words.
And Val said, "You're not serious. I can't say that line." And Val stood there with all these guys standing around going, with all these conscripts who are getting $10 a day, all looking at us. And Val said, I'm not doing that line. And I said, "But Val, it's been in the script for a long time. I ain't doing that line." And I understood where his insecurities were coming from. It was a corny line and difficult line to carry off, but he came to terms and he did it.
You are still dangerous. You can be my wingman anytime.
Bullshit. You can be mine.
And all I was worried about was like turning around, like you can see at the end of the picture, I'm on the aircraft carrier, and I'm like, you know, everyone else is walking away from the camera, but I turn around and I'm like mugging. You know, I'm completely shameless in areas like that, which is horrible. But I didn't go to Juilliard.
We actually got kicked off of the aircraft carrier. Rick and I. Rick and me. Rick and me. No, Rick and I, sorry. Rick and I got kicked off the aircraft carrier. I did nothing. But Rick, with just wild.
I got in trouble a bit on the Enterprise. They gave us berths to sleep in, and I remember I went to my cot in my bunk, and I saw that on one of the walls was like a nuclear reactor kind of sign, and it was like a warning and a test date, and I said, you know, we're on a nuclear ship, of course, and I said, what is this? And so I just I ditched that bunk, and I went to another part of the ship, and I just got into a bed, and I was sleeping, and some officer came there like a few hours later, and he said, get out of my bunk, and I said, you know, you can climb in with me, or you can shove off, and that kind of caused some problems. So the next morning I had to go up to the captain's chair, the big guy, and remember he was like MacArthur with like a pipe, and he really kind of reprimanded me and gave me like a lot of grief for going against protocol and all this stuff, and I forget, I got in trouble again. What was it? I did something else the next day that just and so they ended up flying me off the ship actually that afternoon. They had enough of me. I think I made 3 days out of 4, and they sent me off. It was a good time on the ship, but like I say, that those guys, they were tired of being at sea, and a bunch of Hollywood kind of actors pretending to be flyboys coming on the ship. It might have put them on edge a little bit, I think. We had a good time though.